Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking About Birds, the only Cardinal podcast about to get slapped by Tommy Pham. My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Ben Samorka.
Hey, Nate H.
If you have an idea for the opening bit, text or leave us a voicemail at 848-48-HAM. Oh my God, I almost said 48 Hambo.
Leave that in.
Yeah, okay. If you have it's 848-48 birds is the.
You're not editing this one out.
No, I'll leave it in 848-48 Hambone. Hambone could be a phone number. I wonder if that's available. Have you ever looked up just like your area code in Hambone?
I have not, but just so we have it out there, 848-48 birds is the actual way to contact us. You dumbass.
All right, Hambone.
You're so obsessed with me.
You permeate my life, I suppose. And it's horrible. I'm in a waking nightmare.
It's a curse.
It is a curse. But here we are, like Sisyphus. I am bound to push this podcast every week.
Amazing.
Yeah. We've made it to the other end of the deadline. We've survived and ultimately, I'd say pretty anti-climactic, though. There's a lot of.
I don't know if I share that thought.
I think for the Cardinals, we're kind of kind of jump into the main point here. I think for the Cardinals, it was pretty good.
Yeah,
but like broadly speaking, did you see that? Not a single top 100 prospect, according to Baseball America, was traded at this trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, even just the general quality of the average player traded was lower than you would expect. There was nobody, I mean, other than the Rays that went full, the Rays and the White Sox that went full scorched earth.
Yeah.
But even the White Sox held on to some of their good players. The Rays didn't move Yandy Diaz, who was arguably their best trade chip. There wasn't a lot of big names flying around, which was interesting, but a lot of moves.
There was a lot of moves, and the Cardinals had a couple very interesting moves that we're going to discuss, and we're going to discuss what the rest of the teams competing for the playoff spots in the NL Central and the wild card, what they did, so we can sort of paint the picture of what this playoff race is going to look like over the next 2 months. But before we do that, you apparently had an experience that I just need to hear a little bit about, because frankly, I'm shook. I can't believe you went and did this. I didn't even know. So will you tell us a little bit about what you participated in apparently this weekend?
Well, Nathan, I went to Colorado's finest Renaissance Fair down in Larkspur, Colorado, which is apparently one of the more famous ones in the country. I had absolutely no awareness of this until this weekend. But I went, I visited the king, I paid my dues, I walked around, I ate a pretzel from a stick. I had mead, I was merry, I watched jesters, I watched the king, I watched a jousting match.
We all know you were there for the winches.
And the winches were plentiful. There was a comedy group called the Three Winches.
Okay.
And they were cracking great bits by the pirate bar as I was bidding an elbow to some mead with my brethren and my lovely wife. It was kind of awesome. It was really great. I will say, so like, it was 95, 96 degrees when I went. So I'm like, I'm not playing character at all. I went in like athleisure, like sweat clothing and like comfortable Adidas tennis shoes. And I'm not kidding you. I walked through the gates 5 seconds and somebody in full costume is like ripping me apart, making fun of me for my wear and saying like that I should try harder and do better and take it seriously next time. And I was like, God, I'm getting bullied by nerds. Maybe the nerdiest thing I've ever done.
Yeah. So I'm just astounded because now I there was a time not that long ago
Yeah.
where you gave me so much shit for playing Dungeons and Dragons and
Yes.
being interested in anything even close to that. I've never
Yes.
been to a Renaissance fair, and now
Yes.
you're there with the best of them. One of the best Renaissance fairs in the world. And so I guess what I'm saying is apology accepted.
Yeah, I think like you could look at it that way, or you could look at it a way as like I'm willing to take in information, to change my mind, to learn new things, to be open to experiences, while also keeping my foot firmly on your neck as often as possible. If I see a gap, Nate, I'm going for it. And now hindsight is 2020. I'm a little
Uh-huh.
more into it. I've been DMing my own campaign for about a year and a half now. It's the tides have changed.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I'm fine with admitting that, but I think
Yeah.
it more is a compliment to my ability to grow and learn and change over time. And
Sure.
I
And
thought you would
and
like
I'll
that.
I credit you with that, and I just want to reinforce that I was right all along. So I'm glad though that you're into it. And there's a the people that I do the video game podcast. Two of them live in Houston, and apparently one of the biggest Renaissance fairs in the world. Apparently, other along with the one in Larpsburg or whatever you said.
Larkspur.
They've got to change it to LARP Spur, though, right?
That's good. That's good. I'll email
Yeah.
the king. The last
Uh,
weekend is this
there's
upcoming weekend.
there's no way they receive emails. You must send a messenger. Send a carrier pigeon of sorts. But anyway, they do there's a massive one in Houston that
Yeah.
goes for like a month, and it's one of the biggest in the world. And we've been talking about doing like a full take the kids down there and do like a several day thing because it sounds like it's a ton of fun. Though
Yeah.
I've never been.
Um, I really enjoy. I'll tell you what knocked my socks off was like the whole thing was fantastic, but the best part of it was just the other people who went there and the level of costumes and makeup
Yeah.
and role playing. It was fantastic. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Couldn't recommend it more highly. Um, and I don't know, try to go when it's not so hot. It was smoking hot. That
Yeah.
that part kind of sucked. And
Smoking.
you're like outside the entire time. You're cosplaying as it's 1400, so there's not like an air conditioned room you can go walk into. My one complaint
Hmm.
is that these nerds must be rich because as I said, I'm a DM. I thought it would be fun. There was this dice maker who was on
Yeah.
site, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to go buy some sets of die for my players," and wouldn't that be a fun little treat for next time we get together? I walk into this place, the bare minimum price there. I saw a D20. It was a larger D20 for $120. Dice sets were starting at it was like 150,
That shit better
175.
be weighted to where I'm rolling a 20 like 40% of the time if
I
I'm
mean,
spending $120.
there were walking sticks that were $200,
Yeah.
cloaks, magic wands, all
Mm,
hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And my thought was like, I guess nerds have disposable income because they stay inside and probably have jobs that pay decently. But I was just shocked at the prices
yeah.
everywhere I turned. But anyways, it was really fun. Jousting was dope. It was just a good time. Everybody acting completely insane. It was lovely.
I recently learned about a company that like melts down weaponry and turns
Yeah,
it into dice.
that's badass.
So you get like these dice were crafted from a long sword, that sort
That's
of shit.
actually dope. I would love that.
Well, I'm glad you went and had a good time. Were they serving like giant turkey legs and stuff like that you
Oh,
could get at Six Flags?
yeah, everything. Everything that you would think would be there was there. Like I said, from the
A
from the
dragon.
mead to the turkey legs, the winches serving beer, pirate songs.
Hmm.
The king and his court would just walk through and push everybody out of the way at certain points. It was great. Somebody acted like my tattoos were some like abomination from some witch or something like that. If you haven't seen, I'm a fairly heavily tattooed person, and she was like screaming at my legs and my arms and asking me what had happened to me, and said was trying to sell me some type of ointment that would cure it. It
It's a
was
good bit.
it
That's a
was
really
go.
good
It was
bit. I bet she does that like 9 times a day, and
yeah.
it gets a cackle every single
Yeah,
time.
it was pretty good.
Burn him!
Yeah.
Burn him!
Yeah, and I could rub like cream de newt on my arm to clear up
Cream to
this
Newt.
rash.
No, he's finally back from the IL.
Oh no.
There. This is Cardinal related.
There we go. We're relatable again. Let's go.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'll have to go sometime, and I'll report back. But I'm glad you went and had a good time. It's got to be a fucking power trip to get to play the king at one of those
Oh,
things.
we were talking about that. Like, what does he do? Because, like, obviously, this guy's got a day job. Do you think when he goes back in the office, he's like, "What'd you guys do all weekend? Oh, that's cool. I was king."
I was king.
Yeah.
They're like, Jerry, we know. Okay. But here, you're assistant manager. Okay.
Yeah.
Could you please restock aisle 3, Jerry?
Yeah. Yeah.
This
But
is
they
a
were, I
win.
mean, they were all hamming it up. It was, like
Yeah.
I said, everything I wanted it to be and more. It was really fun.
Well, all right. One last question, then we got to move on. But what are you? So you intend to go again? Have you thought about what you're going to wear to this next time?
So th- I think I have thought about this, and I think it'd be really fun to play as a D&D character that I've used in the past.
Sure.
One of those characters that I really love is a drow, which I don't think would play well if I cosplayed as a drow in public. And another one is a big, stupid, heavily tattooed barbarian that just walks around
It's
in a
kinda-
loincloth. And I
Yeah.
think that would be really funny. Also, it's hot as shit. So
Uh-huh.
me being able to wear as little clothing as possible while also cosplaying kind of sounds like a win-win.
Yeah, it'd be
So, yeah.
perfect for you too. You're not expected to formulate complex thoughts,
No.
handle a conversation.
I could hit somebody and it'd be
Yeah.
in character. It's
There you
all
go.
things that play to my strengths. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Perfect.
Thanks, buddy.
Quick plug for anyone who's listening who has not seen the D&D Honor Among Thieves movie that came out last year. It's incredible.
It is. I really liked it as well. They should make a sequel.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to, unfortunately, but I mean, it's getting kind of a cult following, and regardless of whether you're into any of this stuff, it's just a really fun movie, and I think it's suitable for pretty much any.
Yeah, and you know
anyone.
what? If you're not into this stuff, that's totally fine. But I would say, maybe you would be. Maybe open your mind a little bit. Maybe you would have some fun with it. It can be fun.
There you go. You heard it here first, folks. All right, let's move on
Such
and
an
talk.
asshole.
I meant that.
Yeah, it sounded very genuine.
I meant that. I'm just trying to move the show forward.
Move it along.
Yep. I'm proud of you.
Okay.
Let's talk about the trade deadline. So, like I said at the top, we're going to kind of do this.
We got a full show, Nathan.
Yeah,
lollygagging up top.
We're going to do this in two segments. We're going to talk about the Cardinals, and then we're going to talk about the rest of the playoff contenders. So the Cardinals. I mean, let's start with the big one, the impactful one, the one that we were all waiting for. We knew the Cardinals were going to acquire a starting pitcher.
Yeah,
it seemed pretty clear. Ben, will you break down the pieces of this deal?
Yeah, there's quite a bit to break down, so bear with me, ladies and germs. The Cardinals, Dodgers, and White Sox pull off a 3-team trade. And I'm just going to read it team by team. The Cardinals receive right-handed starting pitcher Eric Fedde from the White Sox, outfielder Tommy Pham from the White Sox, and a player to be named later or cash considerations from the Dodgers and cash from the White Sox, which I find completely insane that those two teams sweeten the deal for the Cardinals even more.
Yeah.
The Dodgers receive right-hander Michael Kopech from the White Sox, infielder, outfielder, utility genius Tommy Edman, obviously from your St. Louis Cardinals, and then right-hander Oliver Gonzalez from the Cardinals, who is a lower-level minor league player who will probably be throwing 99 with a nasty changeup in about 6 to 12 months. And then the White Sox, out of this deal, they received infield outfielder prospect Miguel Vargas, who can hit a little bit. We'll see how that works out for them. Minor league infielder Alexander Albertus, minor league infielder Harold Perez, and a player to be named later or cash considerations, all of those coming from the Dodgers. So the long story short here, to to put a Cardinal focus lens on that is the Cardinals essentially traded Tommy Edman for Eric Fedde, Tommy Pham, a player to be named later from the Dodgers, and cash from the White Sox. And I guess I'll just get into this. I think this is arguably the best trade of this trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is close to a fleece job if it's not just a straight up fleece job. I think the Cardinals knocked out their two biggest needs in one fell swoop, and they were able to trade away from a position of depth. We've talked about how Tommy Edman, Michael Ciani, Lars Nootbaar, Dylan Carlson, who's no longer on this team, but all those guys kind of were filling the same holes, and it didn't really make sense.
Mm-hmm.
This podcast loves Tommy Edman. You have to give something to get something.
We've always loved Tommy Edman.
But I think what's amazing about this is that Eric Fedde was arguably one of the better pitchers available. We talked about it last week. He obviously doesn't have the crazy wipeout, strikeout stuff, but this guy is making no money. He is easily a number 2 starter for the St. Louis Cardinals, and we have him for next year. I just think that alone is a slam dunk. And then that doesn't even begin to touch on the fact that Tommy Pham is back as a Cardinal. In his first plate appearance as a Cardinal, he gets a pinch hit grand slam
Fucking
opposite
incredible.
field. I mean, Nate, when I'm watching this last night, I am screaming at my TV, smiling from ear to ear. I could the joy, it had just flooded back. I was just immediately having a great time. And I almost feel like, I'll try not to be too dramatic, but like the rest of the season started yesterday. Like we are moving forward. This team has got a different vibe already. I think that there is a real chance that Tommy Pham and Wilson Contreras, their insane energy and competitiveness is
and Nootbaar
really fun. Yeah, I'm feeling great. So, anyways, big trade. I think it really sets up the Cardinals nicely for the next year and a half. It's pretty great.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think it was. It was another deal that Mozeliak has pulled off that you go and you look at social media and whatnot, and it's pretty much immediately like, how the hell did the Cardinals pull this off? Which is always a good feeling, right? You love that. Now, if Tommy Edman, which this is very possible, goes out and puts out 5 WAR for the Dodgers in 2025, we have to be prepared for that. He's a very good player and he's going to give them value. Or if this Oscar Gonzalez kid turns out to be a flamethrower and a huge piece of their bullpen, we have to be prepared for that. But
just to correct, Oliver Gonzalez.
Sorry. Thank you. Oliver. Oscar Gonzalez is like an outfielder for the Guardians or something. But anyway, you said,
just so everyone's on the same page, Oliver Gonzalez is currently 17 years old.
Yeah. Who knows? Huge flyer. I don't think he's even played stateside ball yet. Like you said, like we say a lot on the show, you got to give value to get value. I think it's interesting. Apparently, this trade started out as the Cardinals were basically in agreement for just Fedde for Edman straight up. And then just the way the machinations of trade discussions go, and the Cardinals wanted to add in Tommy Pham, it just blew out into this whole thing, a 3-team deal, which is always a lot of fun. And somehow the Cardinals ended up with player to be named later and or cash considerations, which I'm assuming is probably related to Tommy Edman's health. We don't know the factors of that, but I would guess the Dodgers have asked for some, like if he comes back in the next week and he plays the rest of the season, that improves what we get back for him. But if something happens and he doesn't come back this year at all, it probably turns into cash considerations or something like that.
Dodgers is hedging that bet a little bit, which of course makes sense.
Yeah. Interesting return for the White Sox.
It
Won't get too much into it. Vargas has some upside, and he definitely has playing time now.
Sure.
And it's really strange to me that they even wanted Tommy Edman in the first place, because I don't think 2025 is their window.
This reminds me of the William Contreras deal, where it's like, it's the Braves and the A's are like, okay, I think we got to trade here. I want to get your catcher. Okay, I'll give you my catcher. And then the Brewers come in and just swoop up the best player. And the A's are just sitting there. The White Sox, I think they screwed the pooch on. Like, what the hell? Like, Miguel Vargas could be a guy, but he doesn't really have a defensive home. He's kind of Eloy Jimenez-esque. Like, he could be a bopper, but he's probably a DH. It's a weird move for
Yeah.
them.
It's the whole thing is very strange. But yeah, I mean, the Cardinals come out on top, and again, focusing on the Cardinals specifically, like that, maybe you could argue Jack Flaherty would have been a better get, or I don't know, a bunch of guys that didn't get traded, like Crochet or like a Scooble or whatever.
Yeah.
But outside of those guys, arguably the best pitching option on the market. And then when you consider his contract, which is $7.5 million next year, it kind of makes me think of the John Lackey deal,
Yeah.
or this is kind of similar too to the Jordan Montgomery deal. Trading like one injured piece for a year and a half of a pretty good pitcher.
Yeah. We don't really talk about the money all that often on the show, and it's mostly because I don't care, because they should spend more money. And
yeah, we talk about the money in a like abstract, like the ownership is trash and all, but we don't talk about like the on the field, like
right.
budget salary caps and things like that very, very much.
I do kind of want to talk about it in this instance because I do think it's like Eric Fedde has already put up 2.7, almost 3 WAR on the season. The Cardinals have him for next year. $7.5 million. You can't even get a reliever on the free agent market for $7.5 million,
Right.
let alone a number 2, 3 starter, who, like we already said, is locked. I think that the money side of it, his production, the money side, just the value add of this deal is kind of wild to me, that other teams weren't going after him more aggressively, that other teams weren't more willing to go harder or with a bigger asset than Tommy Edman. I don't like the Orioles could have slammed this, like knocked this out of the water. The Dodgers could have knocked this out of the water. They went out and got pitching and they got some higher end. But I really, really like the deal. And I don't expect Fedde to come in here and change the organization or anything like that. But I do think he's going to be a really solid number 2, an innings eater, and a guy who will, let the Cardinals win every 5th day.
Yeah.
Another crazy thing about this deal, this was pointed out to me by AJ Przinsky on Instagram this morning. So take it for what it is. But I thought this was just kind of amazing.
Likely future manager of the Chicago White Sox.
That is also insane, which I'm pro that.
Yeah.
AJ needs to be in baseball more. Eric Fedde has 7 wins on the season. The White Sox have 27 wins.
Dude, it's bad. They're in the midst of a 16-game losing streak. They apparently there's a reporting of a in clubhouse fight.
Yeah.
It's bad for them. I feel so bad for Luis Robert Jr. He had to be just praying to be traded. He's a superstar on a shit team that just got even worse. Apparently in one of their broadcasts the other day, Ozzie Guillen, who's also amazing, I love Ozzie Guillen, was saying that like the vibe in the clubhouse is everyone's hoping to be traded to get out of there.
Yeah.
And Ozzie Guillen was like, who's going to trade for you guys? Why would anyone want any of you guys? Like he was on their broadcast,
Yeah.
Saying they need to stop thinking that way because no one's going to want any of them anyway.
Yeah.
But they did actually manage to trade a handful of their pieces, but not too much return.
No. So
the whole market was strange this time.
It was. There was a lot of moves that happened, not a lot of impactful moves. But anything else we need to say about Eric Fedde side of the deal?
No, I think it's great. I think it's interesting. This is a guy that we all thought we had him on our list of potential offseason signings. And it's just interesting that now, we missed a half the season of him and we had to give up a Tommy Edman, but now he's here. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And
I do think we should criticize the front office a little bit because Eric Fedde could have been gotten and costed you only money. Tommy Pham could have been gotten and only costed you money. and the Cardinals could have flipped Tommy Edman for a different pitcher or a
Sure.
different asset or anything like that. So I think the Cardinals deserve some criticism for the fact that they didn't just go get these guys, and maybe they felt like they needed to see Fedde pitch in Major League Baseball, coming from the KBO, of course, a little bit more before they were fully sold on him. But the White Sox made that deal, and the Cardinals could have. So I just
Yep.
think we shouldn't let
Yeah.
them totally skate on that. But we got them, and we should be happy about that, I think.
Yeah. The other part of the deal, I got to give you credit. You said it on last week's episode. You highlighted Tommy Pham as a great target. I said there's no way that that's going to happen. And here we
Apparently,
are.
the clubhouse was begging for it, Nate.
Yeah, I had no idea. That's been the real surprise about this whole thing, is that multiple players, Arenado included, have been requesting that the Cardinals get Tommy Pham all year, including in the off season. Tommy Pham, apparently, I did not know this. Maybe I forgot about it, or maybe it wasn't reported, or I missed it. But like, apparently, Tommy Pham went to the complex in the off season and like basically pitched for the Cardinals to sign him.
Yeah.
And I think that one's a little bit easier to understand in hindsight. Like, going into this season, we had Jordan Walker, we had Dylan Carlson, we have Nootbaar, we had a lot of outfielders. So I don't really blame the Cardinals for not signing Tommy Pham during the offseason.
Right.
It has turned out that we needed Tommy Pham, but
I don't think anyone paying attention to the Cardinals would have thought that the problem that they were going to have was right-handed hitting against left-handed pitching.
Yeah.
There's just like, with Goldie, with Walker, with Nato, with Contreras, that you would think this is a team that would beat up on right-handed pitching.
We had that listener, and I'm sorry I can't remember who you were out there, but we had someone send us a message earlier in the year, like asking, do we think that hitting against left-handed pitching is going to be a real problem? And we were all like, well, no, that's probably a small sample size from last year, and it's turned out to not be the case, and it has been a real problem. So shout out to the foresight of that listener.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, all things considered, Tommy Pham became the perfect piece for the Cardinals. And to their credit, they put what we don't even know, but I would assume some concerns about bringing him back. They put it aside, and it turns out that the players wanted that, which is more important than any like front office's personal feelings or whatever. And you can't you literally cannot have a better return, a pinch hit grand slam that puts the game out of reach. Like, it's incredible.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just to talk about Tommy Edman, and again, take this all with a grain of salt, because Tommy Edman joined the White Sox late.
Tommy Pham.
Tommy Pham joined the White Sox late. But let's just look at some of the numbers of Tommy Pham versus left-handed pitching this season so far. Almost a 15% walk rate. He has on base percentage of 387, slugging 538. His ISO is 269. That all adds up to a WRC plus of 159.
Which is, that's got to be the best on the team by quite a stretch, right? Now, again, narrowed down to just against lefties, but still.
And then right on right, he's not as good. What is impressive, though, is he is holding a 267 batting average, but his walk and slug go down pretty drastically. He's at a 91 WRC plus. I do think that he is a must start against righties, and I think it makes sense to start him against against lefties, and it makes sense to start him sometimes against righties, especially if he has good matchup numbers. But I think him off the bench, he's still fast. Obviously, I was calling for this move. I'm a big fan of this move. I think it makes sense. And then also the unquantifiable, Tommy Pham is a crazy man competitor.
Yeah.
There was clips yesterday morning of him out on the field before everybody, like sprinting and long tossing, just like
the revenge tour. It's returned to its point of origin.
It has. And I assume him and Mo, if there was beef, it's squashed. Like he's back. So it's happening.
He's saying the right things. He said, I know my role is to come in and play against left-handed pitchers. But you guys know me, I'm going to compete for an everyday spot. So we'll see how that goes. There is opportunity there. He could, if he plays well enough, he could. I don't think he usurps Siani at this point, but that like Donnie in the outfield. You're obviously
Yeah.
keeping Burleson out there, but Burleson can play first and might be the first baseman of the future. So you could see a world where Tommy Pham starts getting a lot more starts out there.
I would also like to see this, maybe, especially with this extra piece that you just straight up did not have, especially with Ivan Herrera being back down in AAA. I would hope that this signals the Cardinals just being more opportunistic and matchup focused and
Yeah.
swapping guys in and out, because we haven't seen that as much this year. And I think, like, I don't mean to pick on Paulie, but I think it's time for Paul Goldschmidt to maybe miss a start against a tough righty and
Mm-hmm.
put in Burley, and maybe Tommy Pham goes out and takes that outfield spot, or there's some
Yeah.
combination here. But I'd like to see Ollie and the team be a little more creative and a little more opportunistic. And
Well,
I think this cog in the machine makes that a lot easier.
it definitely does, because until last night with this opportunity, your bench was Matt Carpenter, Brandon Crawford, Jose Fermin. Like what is, there are no
Yeah.
advantages there. It's all kind of the same mess of might draw a walk, but you might get behind one every once in a while. We saw the back-to-back doubles of Crawford and Carpenter, which was
That
fun,
was sweet. That was sweet. Yeah.
but like for the most part, you're not getting any advantage by swapping one of these guys out for the other. But having that opportunity of Carp got the start, and then there's a key at bat with the lefty on the mound, and you put Pham out there. I mean, you're probably just starting Pham there over Carp 100% of the time now, anyway. But if you are, uh, if he's on the bench, he's now immediately your best pinch hit option against lefties or righties going forward. It just makes it all much better.
Yeah. Before we move on from this, I do think we need to talk about Tommy Edman a little bit, and to, console our friends out there like Kelsey, who
Mm-hmm.
are spiraling with this news. And I think
There's
for
a
good
flood
reason.
warning in Philadelphia
From the tears.
from the cheers.
But Tommy is going into a situation where I expect him to thrive. Like you said, it wouldn't surprise me if he puts up a 5 WAR season. I don't know if Tommy necessarily has that, but I think he's going to go into LA and kind of take over that role that, like, Kike Hernandez has kind of lived in for quite a while, and Chris Taylor. Like, they're
Yeah.
really good at playing matchups, and they're really good at using versatility. And he's a California guy. He went to Stanford. I think there's a good story here, and I think it should be a good landing place for Tommy Edman.
Yeah.
Hopefully, he actually gets healthy and plays and contributes quickly. That's I'd prefer to see that than to see him kind of languish. But um, I, Tommy Edman is underrated. Uh, he should be good. I can't think of a better team for him to be with right now than
Yeah.
the Dodgers.
Yeah. Yeah. We love Tommy Edman, and he's been there until this year. He's been there so much when everyone else isn't. He's always been the guy to fill whatever the hole is. Oh, he's our shortstop now. Oh, he's our second base. Oh, he's a pretty damn good center fielder, even if it took us a little while to fully recognize that. Like, he's a super valuable baseball player, and that's part of why we were able to get one of the best pitchers on the market in this deal. And that's just the needs of the team and the business of baseball. But maybe there'll be a reunion someday, but wish him the best of luck. You can't be, if you're Edman, you can't be unhappy about if you're going to be traded, winding up for, he was almost a White Sox.
Yeah.
And now he's on one of the best teams in baseball, and will certainly be a contributor once he's healthy.
Yeah, bullet dodged for
Yeah.
for Tommy.
Yeah. I want to throw something out there real quick too. You mentioned the finances of this whole thing, and there's a lot of talk about Cardinal financing right now, and I don't think we really have time on this episode to dig into that. But I did want to give a shout out to C70 and his blog. He wrote a really good sort of breakdown of the situation with the Cardinals and some of the messaging they've been putting out on his Substack, which is cardinal70.substack.com. So highly recommend you go and check that out, and give him a follow and all that, because it's a really good breakdown of the situation. Also talks about Star Trek, which is always near and dear to my
Saw
heart.
that. I was like, you nerds. Actually, yeah.
He's talking about going to watch Star Trek Discovery, and I'm in the middle of watching it, and I do not recommend it. But we can talk about that later. Let's talk about the other deal. We had one really, really exciting deal.
Yeah.
One thing that we love, and another one that just felt anticlimactic and pretty sad ultimately. The Cardinals, after apparently shopping Dylan Carlson to every single team for every single potential reliever, including some relievers that had some real value behind them, no one would do a 1-to-1 Dylan Carlson swap for any of their relievers until they found Shawn Armstrong
Yeah.
from the Tampa Bay Rays. Shawn Armstrong had an incredible 2023.
Yes.
And he has been having a pretty brutal 2024. Now, some of that, he had a start or a moment where I think he gave up 6 runs in a third of an inning, which as a reliever, that's just going to fuck your entire season's line. That's hard to come back from. But besides that, his stat cast is full of blue. He just has not had a good year. There's some stuff you could look at, like he's been throwing his 4-seamer a lot more, whereas last year he did not throw it nearly as much. It was his most valuable pitch in 2023, and so you can see why they might have been like, throw it more in 2024, but that seems to have been backfiring. So there may be some pitch mix things the Cardinals could do to clean up Armstrong. I typically trust the Rays to be able to do that, but you never know.
Yeah.
So there is some upside here, but big picture, I know what you want to rant about, and that I'm just like holding a kink in the hose right now of is that it is a disappointing end to the Dylan Carlson experience here in St. Louis.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So
he's keeping it in, folks. I know we're both like,
when I got this news, Nate, my water heater was actively flooding part of my basement. So the house was a little bit of chaos at that point. I was in the middle of the workday. My lovely wife tells me that our water heater is flooding our basement. So I'm coming up with a fix like that. I'm emotionally frazzled, and then DC gets traded for Shawn Armstrong. So I'll talk about Shawn Armstrong first, and then I'll come back to DC. I will say, he has a good slider. He has an effective cutter. He has 2 pitches that can get major league hitters out, and they've done that in the past. So I think that there is a likely scenario where this guy comes in and he takes some meaningful innings over the stretch, and everything's fine. My big problem with this deal is what the Cardinals have done with one of their most prized assets over, since 2020. And I think that they have mishandled him. They have refused to trade him in opportunities like bringing Juan Soto to the St. Louis Cardinals. He was the deal breaker, as was reported post that deal. And they kind of just let his value slip from one of the better prospects in baseball to a rising star from his performance when he got his first full season in 2021, and just languishing and watching the value deteriorate until you get a piece that is Shawn Armstrong might be good. He might click in. Relievers can do all kinds of crazy things. But I would tell you that this player probably exists somewhere in the Cardinals minor league system right now. He just doesn't have major league experience. And that is a differentiating factor. But It's taking that value and watching it just wither away until nothing and then dumping him when you absolutely have to dump him. That's what makes me so frustrated about this.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Cardinals did a very similar thing with Tyler O'Neill, as far as just letting his shine wear off until they were forced to move on from him, rather than what I think the Cardinals should do, and that is look at they have four outfielders that they like, take the other outfielders and go trade for pitching, because you can't develop that. They haven't been able to develop that. And the Cardinals' inability to make a decision, choose a lane, and then act on that when the iron is hot, rather than when the iron is like been sitting out in the snow for 4 years, frustrates me.
Yeah.
And I would love an explanation to that. I get that not all of these things were in the Cardinals' control or in DC's control, like him running into a brick wall that is Jordan Walker in spring training. But there is, just from an asset management standpoint, this is a failure in my eyes.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with it. I mean, on the one hand, you think, well, okay, let's take their perspective. He was a top prospect. He had a fantastic rookie season. I believe it was like third place in rookie of the year voting. He had almost a full season in 2022, and he had about a league average season, putting up about 2 WAR. So you start to see like, okay, it wasn't a great sophomore year, but it wasn't a horrible sophomore year either. We want to hold on to him. 2023, he pretty much tanks. He's hard to, he returns almost no value. And then they think, all right, 2024 year, this is his last chance. And then the worst case scenario happens. He gets hurt and he is brutal when he is on the field.
Yeah.
And we'd be feeling quite differently if what looked like was happening in spring carried over to the major league level, and we'd all be praising the Cardinals for their patience with Dylan Carlson, right? But instead they got like the lowest percentile outcome as far as favorability goes.
Right.
And that sucks. And they ultimately had to do this. So part of it is just like Dylan Carlson just not doing it when he had the opportunity to do it. But he is young, like he's not that young anymore, but a lot of this stuff has all been when he's like 23 and 24 in the major league level, which a lot of guys are still at AAA at that point. So I don't know. I part of me thinks like we want the organization to be patient with our young players. We want them to give them the time. But when it goes this, when you do that, when you are that patient and it just fails, it ends up looking horrible, which is what's happened with Dylan Carlson. Now, your point, which is it doesn't really matter. They've had too many outfielders for too long, and they should have just picked one, whether it's Dylan Carlson or whoever, and just traded everyone else a while ago, I think is a fair criticism, because this has been a thing where it's for years now. It's like we have 6 sort of pretty good, maybe great, maybe bad outfielders, and no one's getting a full shot. And it's been bad for a while now. Just pick a lane, pick 3 and hope it works out. I think is fair.
You have more information on your outfielders than anybody else does. Pick your 3 or 4 favorite and then move. Like I think it's pretty simple. And I think a lot of other teams do this. Deal from depth. That is how you improve your team. Yeah, it's that. Yeah. And it's just, yeah. Anyways.
Well, let's move on because it is what it is at this point. Dylan Carlson, we wish you the best of luck. He's probably going to get plenty of time at in the Rays outfield to
I'll tell
play.
You what.
And boy, we love to see the Rays acquire our low performing outfielders, don't we? Surely this won't feel horrible in a month or two.
Christopher Morel is going to start in left field for them. Dylan Carlson is going to be in right field for them, and they'll have Jose Siri in center. That is going to be a really nice outfield for them next year. I think the Cubs also made a terrible deal trading Morel for Isaac Paredes, but
yeah, we'll talk about that here in a minute. Well, how about that as a good transition? So,
two other quick notes. I think we just need to hit really quickly before we move on. Michael McGreevy making his first start in the major leagues against the Rangers as we speak. Very excited about that. And Giovanni Gallegos, aka Dude Waffles, has been DFA'd. We will see what happens there. But just two quick housekeeping notes before we move on.
Yeah. Excited for McGreevy. I will be surprised if anybody claims Dude Waffles. So I think there's a chance he stays in the organization. But we'll see.
He could figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, it's the life of a reliever. You're the best for 4 years and then you're unplayable. It's wild. Either way, if this is the end of Dude Waffles' career with the Cardinals, just want to repeat, he's been like, where would this team had been be without him over the last 5 years or so?
Fully agree on that. Yeah.
One of the better trades Mozeliak made too by
Agree.
Dumping Luke Voigt, who seemed to be on the rise, but there you go. That's an example of the Cardinals figuring out, like, this guy has value. He does not fit with the Cardinals. Let's move him and get something. So, okay. So what we want to do is kind of talk about the current state of the league and what the other competitors did at the trade deadline. So we're recording on Wednesday afternoon. The Cardinals are currently tied for second place with the Pittsburgh Pirates, who have been surging as of late, which is interesting. I still don't think they have like the long term or like the depth to continue this all season, but here we are, 2 months left, and they are tied. So you got to give them credit where credit is due, and they have some of the best pitching in baseball. And O'Neill Cruz seems to be turning it on. There are 3 wild card spots currently held by Atlanta, the New York Mets, and the San Diego Padres. And basically, the Diamondbacks, Pittsburgh, and St. Louis are the only 3 teams actively competing for those spots. So there's 3 spots for 6 teams, assuming the divisions all stay as they are. Technically, the Cardinals could still compete for the NL Central, and I don't want to take that off the board, but I think we have to focus on what's more in front of us and more likely, which is a wild card spot, which they are currently 2 games back of. So there's really 6 teams, top the 3 best of those 6, because it's so tight right now. The Cardinals just need to win 2 more games than the Mets, the Padres, the Diamondbacks, the Pirates, or the Braves, and they're in the playoffs. So it's going to be an interesting race. So who do you want to talk about first as far as the trade deadline and the contenders?
Yeah, I figured we would stay in the division first, and let's talk about those Pittsburgh Pirates, who I think deserve some credit because they actually pushed their chips in for once.
Yes.
And that is it's like seeing a unicorn in the wild. It just never happens. So round of applause for Bob Nutting, not nutting all over the place this time, and Ben Cherington actually improving his team. So round of applause. Great job.
Yay.
Did they do enough, Nathan? I don't think so. I think that Brian De La Cruz is a good get. They traded for Brian De La Cruz and IKF. Now, they kind of had to trade for IKF because Nick Gonzalez has just gone down and might be down for the rest of the season, which is not great. He had been playing pretty well. So they had to get a second baseman. He will be their second baseman probably for the rest of the year. That's probably just plug and play. They'll move forward from that. Brian De La Cruz, that's a guy in the Marlins who you and I chatted about quite a bit. I like him. He hits the ball really hard. He's kind of undersized. He's not a great defender, but he hits the ball really hard. He's always hitting the ball hard. And being out of that stadium and coming to Pittsburgh will probably be a good move for him. But taking a step back, like they just called up Jake Woodford to start for them this week. Like the team is not rock solid. They need, they just really need things to go well for pretty much everybody in that starting lineup for this to turn into anything. And I don't think that those trades are enough to move the needle really at all.
Yeah, I still think both on paper and in results, the Cardinals are a better team, but they are tied, and the Cardinals don't have a Paul Skeens or an O'Neill Cruz. I mean, I guess Sonny Gray, but even Sonny Gray has been struggling a little bit of his late, though I'm not worried about him big picture. But Paul Skeens might be the best pitcher in baseball.
I
Um,
I wonder how they're gonna let him ride. Like, is there a Paul Skeens inning limit, or it is like since he's built like a horse, did they just let him kind of go out and do his thing?
I've been thinking about that too, because if they actually are going to compete for a wild card spot, you also have to imagine they want to keep him ready for that, but they can't
Yeah,
really get to it without him.
right.
Also, it's an interesting balance. They do benefit by the fact that, like you said, he's a giant dude, and two, he's a college pitcher, so he has thrown it. He's thrown more innings. It's not like he's a guy who's coming up with only, I think, 30 innings pitched the season before. But I'm sure they're thinking about it, and I suspect they're going to make a pretty they're going to make some people upset here in the near future when they start to limit his innings or make him skip a start here and there.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, but I kind of would my gut says let the kid pitch because
Hmm.
he is who he is, but it's always hard to tell. Also, pitchers just get injured, so that's
Yeah,
kind of really like I have this like nihilist point of it's like it's gonna happen anyway.
it's
Just let
just
him
throw
pitch,
him out there until treat him
whatever.
like college coaches do.
Yeah, maybe not that, but somewhere in between. But anyways, yeah, the Pirates. I think the Cardinals have to take them seriously. Obviously, they're 1-1 or both sitting there at second place. I agree with your overall assessment, though. I don't think they did enough, and I don't think they were good enough before to really, I don't know, make us all that afraid. But that's why they play the games, Nady
Wow,
H.
wow. I'm trying to pull up there. To be fair, their run differential is far better than the Cardinals.
Yes,
No, that doesn't take much.
that's not hard to say. Yeah.
All right, so that's the Pirates. Who you got next?
Let's talk about the Brew Crew, who had a confounding trading deadline from my point of view.
Yes.
Um, and I think it should be noted that right before the trade deadline, Christian Yelich could be facing season-ending back surgery. At the moment, reported by Ken Rosenthal, uh, Yelich will attempt and rehab for now, but with surgery in the offseason, still a strong possibility. So you hear something like that, and you think, well, they're in first place. Go out and get a left-handed hitter. Go out and get a thumper. Go out and get anybody. They went and traded for Frankie Montas, for obviously from the Reds. He's been all right this season, and then they got a Rockies bullpen piece, which is baffling to me, and Nick Mears, and that is all that they did at the deadline. And I think for a team that's in first place, for a team that's playing above their shoes, for a team that just lost their star, I think that is a horrible trading deadline. Like what? I don't understand the thought process here.
My guess is that it's a combination of two things. One, they were not really intending or expecting to win the NL Central this year. We kind of had been hypothesizing that from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Trading Corbin Burns, letting Jackson Churio just start in the outfield every day, even though he's a 20-year-old. I mean, that's going to pay off long term for them, but that was the point. Like, it looked like they were making all these decisions for a 2025 run. And because of the Cardinals' ineffectiveness, and the rest of the NL Central's ineffectiveness, and some really great performances from people like Christian Yelich, they are in first place, but they're unwilling to change their overall game plan, their overall trajectory, to go for it this season. I think that's a big part of it. And then second of all, I suspect that they look at the NL Central and they think we got a big lead. We don't really need to do anything, and we're not to like seal the win, and we're not really anticipating competing against the Braves, or rather the Phillies or the Dodgers. And instead, let's just let it roll the dice on a playoff run, be happy with an NL Central win, get to hang another little banner, call it a successful season, and we'll tackle 2025 with renewed vigor. That's my guess. If I were a fan, I'd be super annoyed. But I'm assuming that's what they were doing.
Yeah. Um, yeah. They haven't had really a good trade deadline in recent memory, really.
What you mean when they traded Josh Hader and tanked like their entire team's morale and ultimately their season?
Yeah,
You didn't like that?
I didn't like that. Well, I liked it from my point of view, but I didn't like it from their point of view. Um, yeah, their offense is filled with a bunch of people who are hitting just slightly above average, and it was really anchored by Christian Yelich putting up a 151 OPS plus. I'm very curious to see how the team responds to that, how the offense goes along, if he is going to make it back this year. But yeah, again, I just don't think they did enough. I um I mean, getting Frankie Montas just kind of weird.
Yeah.
I don't exactly see it, but again, good for the Cardinals, and they're not that far ahead of the Cardinals. There's still
No.
a lot of baseball to go. It's a bad week away from Milwaukee losing first place, so I guess we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean the ultimately the NL Central is wide open still.
Ultimately,
Ultimately. Ultimately. Okay. Let's go outside of the Central and talk about the other wild card teams that are competing. What about the Diamondbacks?
yeah, the Diamondbacks I think had a solid, not great trade deadline. I think AJ Puck from the Marlins was probably going to be a really, really great move. That guy's just got stuff like crazy. Really like that. Dylan Floro, who is flirting with the Cardinals, but obviously the Cardinals did not end up landing him. A sinker baller also going there. And then getting a little bit of thump. Kind of good timing. Christian Walker goes on the IL for an undetermined amount of time, and they bring in Josh Bell, former Pirate, former Padre, former National, former Marlin, kind of bounced all over recently. He's had a shit year.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I
I
could
was gonna
see
say.
him having success in Arizona just because it's a good offensive environment. And I do think that players, not always, but I think generally going from a god awful team to a team that is in the hunt does give a player like a 5 to 10% performance boost just by having something to wake up for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, I think that it certainly helps. I think that's a natural human element. You want to be on a team that cares. We're seeing that a little bit with Jazz over in New York. The way he's
Wow.
talking about it.
Wow.
Obviously,
Yeah.
that ballpark plays really well to his skill set. So there's just some fundamental
I don't even think he's
elements
played
to.
at home yet.
Um, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, this has all been at the. It was all like at the Philly Stadium or
Torch in
something.
Philly. Yeah.
Yeah. He has explicitly said like, "This is what I've always wanted: is playing for a
Yeah.
team that cares." So yeah,
Bye.
I mean, you're happy in your job, you're going to perform better. The dream of Josh Bell really has not arrived at all for any of these teams that have sought him. He's basically played at a league average or worse level for quite a while now. He had a really great, crazy 60 games for the Pirates in 2020, and pretty much has been uh, down. I'm sorry, 2019 he had a great season and then has pretty much just flailed from then on. But you lose your like Christian Walker has only been getting better. And
He's so underrated. He's
yeah,
so good.
but he's likely out for the season. And so you could do a lot worse than going and getting a Josh Bell for basically nothing to just plug in and be your first baseman and keep the team moving forward. But I don't know. I mean, he's hard to root for right now, or it's not hard to root for. He seems like a nice enough guy. It's hard to expect much production from him right now. But like you
Yeah.
said, Diamondbacks better team, more excitement. We'll see.
Corbin Carroll might be,
He's starting to turn it around a
might
little
be a
bit.
little bit. Kettle Marte's having a great year.
Yes.
Jock Peterson is donging doinks all over the place.
Dude, he is dong and doinks. Yeah, they're a fun team. I like the Diamondbacks. I mean, they went to the World Series last year and added on, and they're not having well, actually, they're really having a pretty similar season to last year, which is
Yeah.
just flirting around above 500 and sneaking into the playoffs. I think that much like the Brewers losing Christian Yelich, them losing Christian Walker, tough day for Christians.
It is.
Um, they're really that's a big hole to fill. And at least from a Cardinals perspective, we never root for injuries, but it's hard to pick two more impactful losses for teams you're directly competing with than Christian Walker and Christian Yelich.
Yeah, both arguably the team's best player. I guess maybe Diamondbacks you'd take Marte over Christian Walker, but
It's close.
they're both great though.
Yeah. All right. The surging Mets.
Wow.
Yeah. They're feeling it over there.
They're feeling it, and I say good for them for pushing it. I think that if you gave David Stearns their Pobo or whatever his title is, Truth Serum, he would say that he wants to tear this team down because Philly and Atlanta are just set up for success, and Washington is only getting better. But credit to him, they surged, and he rewarded them. He brought in Jesse Winker from the Nationals. I think that's probably going to be a great move. Ryan Stanek, a flame-throwing relief pitcher, and Paul Blackburn, one of the better players on the A's. The A's had a weird deadline as well. Why did they not trade Brent Rooker or do something more than what they did? But I think that those are solid additions. I think what really, as far as the Mets and them being good, I think people are sleeping on how good of a year Francisco Lindor and Brandon Nimmo are having. Their team they're going to go as far as those guys go. Obviously, Big Scary Pete hits big scary home runs.
But he's a big tough guy.
Lindor is having he'll get some MVP votes at the end of this season.
Yeah, I saw some stat where like over the last 162 games, he's like the only player with 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that these moves are fine. They are obviously not push-in moves. They are not fully going for it, which might turn out to be stupid because you never know when you're going to get another chance. But fine moves. Jesse Winker having a bounce back year. Paul Blackburn can be a fourth or fifth starter.
Yeah. Just to put a final point on it for Francisco Lindor, if you haven't noticed, he's at a 5 WAR season already.
Yeah. He used to be a superstar, like face of the game, and then he goes to New York, and I feel like everyone just forgot about him. But he has been great.
Which is confusing because he went to a far bigger market.
Yeah.
I think it's just everyone likes to laugh at the Mets. And you have to be if the Mets aren't winning the division, then everyone on the Mets is a clown.
Yeah.
And so that's what he's suffered from. But yeah, I mean, frankly, he's on a Hall of Fame pace.
Yes.
So
I agree.
So yeah, I mean, they took the same approach that most of these other teams, including the Cardinals to some degree, which is patch a few holes and let it ride. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, the Padres, I think another team that's in wild card contention. I think that they had AJ Preller is just kind of amazing. He has traded so many guys away and still retained Ethan Salas and still retained Jackson Merrill. And
they did manage, they did 3 pretty big trades and didn't trade any of the blue chip prospects. Again, no top 100 prospects were traded.
Yeah.
But man, he loves to churn and burn. He does kind of run his team like a fantasy baseball manager, which is I kind of love. Like I can't decide if I were a fan of the Padres, am I happy about the way they run the team? Because it's yet to actually go well for them.
Well,
I love you love to see the effort.
Yeah.
It just keeps not working. So at some point you gotta be like, maybe we shouldn't trade all of our prospects all of the time,
Well, they've kind of done this thing of like, they're valuing, I think, MLB players over minor league players, which I think is not a great thing to do in perpetuity. But I think that there is some reason to it because not all prospects make it to the big leagues and not all prospects are even right. So trading guys that are not in big league baseball for guys that are in big league baseball does make sense.
Yeah.
But
I do think there is a tendency across the board for everybody to overvalue prospects.
Yeah.
Unless you are a blue chip top 100 style prospect, odds of you being a long-term contributing Major League Baseball player are very, very low. That doesn't mean you won't be, but like if you're trying to win right now, these guys that are like, like, what is it, Adam Mazur, who looks pretty good, but
Yeah.
it's so hard to be a major league starting pitcher. Like, what are the odds? The odds are that he won't, just in general. So we do need, but we do know that Tanner Scott is one of the best closers in baseball.
Right.
So, it makes sense. Like, I liked the Tanner Scott trade, but it might backfire, but I think odds are it's probably okay.
So yeah, they acquired Tanner Scott, closer from the Marlins, Brian Hoeing, a relief pitcher from the Marlins, is having a nice year, and Jason Adam, who has got closer stuff. Uh, I think that is, they could have gone crazier. AJ Preller has gone crazier. He has done more with less. Um, but those are three really good arms to add into your bullpen. And I think that this team has got all the talent in the world. They already have a really good closer, Robert Suarez. They have 3 or 4 or 5 guys that are going to be really scary to face in the playoffs and down the stretch. I really think that was a great set of moves, even though they're a little low key for the Padres.
Um, Yeah, and they really set the market in some ways. And I think part of the reason this whole trade deadline was so weird is because, like, relievers were so expensive.
Right.
And so when relievers are that expensive, you're like, well, what the hell am I going to have to pay for anything else? Right. And sort of stalled a lot of things. And it's why Dylan Carlson could only get you a Sean Armstrong
Right.
too, Um, so yeah, I mean, I like the Padres. I think they are of the play, like, the wild card's going to be interesting. So now we've covered everybody that we think is competing. I feel like the Braves are, even though they're only a half game up, I still feel like they're clear favorite for one of the wild card spots.
Yeah.
I think after that, if we don't think the Pirates have the longevity, you got to go Padres, Mets, Cardinals, and Diamondbacks.
Yep.
4 teams for 2 spots. It's gonna be close.
It'll be a
And,
very exciting stretch run, I think.
and right now the Mets and the Padres have 2 runs or 2 games
Yep.
on the Cardinals. It's gonna be close, man. This, like, I
Fight for our lives for a shot to be knocked out in the first round.
yeah, sure. Yeah, you never know.
Never know.
Remember Diamondbacks last year? Like, that's the whole point, right? That's the
That's
whole
right.
methodology for the Cardinals. Just get in and see what happens.
Right.
All right, so we're going to talk about the upcoming series and a few of the other major deals that happened at the deadline outside of the Central and the wild card. But before we do, we want to remind everybody that this show is supported by listeners just like you. You out there listening, doing the dishes, driving to work, whatever you may be doing, whatever dark machinations you might be considering
Chopping wood.
right now. Chopping wood, drinking a bud. Who knows?
Do you think
Wherever
we
you
gotta-
are.
Yeah. I think we have some wood choppers out there.
There's at least one.
Hit us up.
If you're out there chopping wood right now, let us know.
Let us know.
Let us know.
Send a pic. Shirtless.
It's, of course. And it's people like you that keep this show running. And if you really want to support the show, consider joining our Patreon, patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. For as little as $2 a month, you can show your support for the show and get access to a couple of cool benefits. First and foremost, you get access to the Birds Court. It's our private Discord channel. We're in there. Tweet. It's been popping as we discuss the trade deadline and all the moves that came through. We're talking during the games, just having a good time away from the mess that is social media and talking to cool people about cool things. So you get that. You also can get early access to episodes. And we have a bunch of different perks at the higher levels, including free t-shirts and things like that. So check it out, patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. Thanks to all of our patrons and all of you that are considering it. If you want to support the show in a different way, that takes no time and no money, just pull out your little podcast app there and pop a review on the show. It really does help. It helps us show up more when people search for things like Cardinal podcasts and whatnot. Ben, where can people find us elsewhere online?
Yeah, really quick, I wanted to shout out that one of our bird squirters just posted a picture of them witnessing Jackson Holliday's first home run. So
Oh,
uh,
cool.
that's
Nice.
really fun. Yeah, you can find us on Twitter at Talk About Birds. We're on Instagram at Talking About Birds. You can come look at our faces on TikTok. You can listen to this show on Spotify or YouTube if you're one of those freaks and like to do that kind of thing. It's there. Go check it out. You can email us questions, requests, rants, threats.
Mm,
I don't know, really anything at all. Advice
yeah.
to talkaboutbirds at gmail.com. And of course, you can call us and leave a voicemail or send a text message to 848 48 birds. That's 848 482 4737. Or just Hambone, I think. Is
just
a Hambone is live.
just send a message to Hambone, and
See what happens.
it'll probably eventually find its way to us.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Okay, so the Cardinals, they've got a busy week. We are in a stretch here, Hambone. They don't have an off day for like 18 games or something, which we're in the middle of
Right.
right now. So we're going to need all hands on deck with that starting rotation. It'll be interesting to see how they balance this out with the addition of Fedde and Michael McGreevy, who is in the middle of a pretty good start right now, but I don't
Yeah,
want
so
to
far. Yeah.
so far. So the should be a fun series. Cardinals head to Chicago for a 4-game set against the Cubs.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, so the Cubs had a semi-active deadline. You already said you didn't like the deal. Isaac Paredes for Christopher Morel. I get it, big picture, but Morel's had a pretty shit season. So
Well,
he long term, I think he can be good, but he's hitting the ball very hard. But he's pretty bad defensively, and his results have been pretty bad. So I think Isak helps them this year at least. We'll see
maybe.
long term.
I think this is a
Well,
bad deal right away. I think that Christopher Morel is a better player than Isaac Paredes, and I think that the Cubs are stupid for making an outfielder play third base poorly. Now, if you're just saying they just needed a third baseman and they were unwilling to give Patrick Wisdom 130 starts this year, then I guess that makes a little more sense. But I think this is boneheaded and dumb, and I think that immediately Cubs fans are going to hate if they don't already hate this once they start watching Christopher Morel play in his actual position, which I think is probably left or right field. Um, I just think it's a bad deal for them. So
yeah,
which is good for us. So there's nothing to really
sure.
complain about. I think bad move, and we'll see. Also,
I
like,
like. Yeah,
sorry.
I'm not as down on Paredes or up on Morel as you are. So I don't know. I think that this
Well,
deal
that
might work
makes
out for
you a
them.
fool, Nathan.
You're a fool. Go put on a jester costume and go to the Ren Fair.
I will. That sounds fun. Yeah, he's definitely an upgrade defensively at third. That's inarguable, right? He's an actual third baseman.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Cubs were just putting a square peg in a round hole, but whatever, it doesn't really matter. And maybe he'll be able to use the wind and his terrible batted ball profile, and maybe he'll continue to hit home runs in Chicago.
Yeah,
I just the Cubs have found themselves in a weird spot. I don't think their team is very good.
yeah. Paredes is a guy that continuously overperforms underlying metrics, which
Yeah,
is surprising every single time. But he's done it for a long enough time now that there are these outlier guys that just keep doing it, and it doesn't really make sense, but it keeps working. And he's been one of them. So that does often eventually collapse. So maybe it
why didn't
will.
the Cubs sell Hector Neris?
Hmm. I don't know.
Like I,
Yeah.
they might be
Well,
dumb.
they didn't really do like a real sell. They did.
Yeah, but they're a losing team. It's a closer
Yeah.
on a 1-year deal. Why do you hold on to that guy?
They think they still got a shot, I guess. Or
They
no one
don't.
wanted Naris. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They also brought in Nate Pearson. If you
Yeah.
remember, he was the
Great name.
future of the Blue Jays a few years ago, and now he is a relief pitcher. But yeah, the Cubs are what the Cubs are. I don't think there's too much to talk about other than that bad deal they made.
Yeah. That 4 games in Wrigley, You never know. It could go
Never
either
easy.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, should be fun though. Um,
Bellinger's back. He just came back off the IL. So there's some news that's noteworthy.
yeah, had a dinger in his first game back. He's had a mediocre season, but it's still Bellinger. He can be pretty good.
No
So
doubt. No doubt.
no doubt. So the Cardinals then have a single game against the Mets, an important game,
Yeah.
as they are a direct competitor, as we've already covered. They will have a makeup game against the Mets, and then they have 3 against the Rays in St. Louis. So the Mets, it is what it is. You got to hope for best results in that one game. You got to feel pretty good against the Rays, who, despite being above 500, sold off a ton of pieces. And
They by far had the biggest fire sale of the deadline.
yeah. Which I get it. You look at the state of the AL East, with the East is the East. Like the 3 best teams in the AL are over there. So they read the writing on the wall. They did what they always do. They sell the team despite it being a pretty good team. But now it's Noah Rosarina. That's one of the bigger ones. Who else did they sell?
They sold. You said a Rosarena. We already talked about Isaac Paredes. I think that was probably a good move. They got rid of who's their starting pitcher that is now an Oriole. The
Zach
guy that pumps
Eflin.
change up. Zach Eflin is now a Oriole. Who else did they trade?
Sold
They
a bunch of their bullpen. Jason Adam, we already
Yeah.
covered. So we don't have to go beat by beat, but basically they traded a lot of their best players, and so you got to feel hopeful that this will be a good series for the Cardinals. It's always fun when to play the Rays. They're still a well-run team, so you imagine they're still going to put up a good fight, but it is a considerably diminished team from what they were even a week ago.
Homecoming for Dylan Carlson. Does he get a standing ovation a la Tommy Pham?
Man, Tommy's was bigger than I expected.
Yeah.
I would imagine Carlson will get a good fan reception.
Despite
all of his struggles. For the most part, I never really saw a lot of fan vitriol towards him. And I don't think that there should be. And so I don't think he'll get like a crazy thing, but I suspect he'll get a good round of applause in his first at bat.
Yeah, I hope so.
And then he's going to go 3 for 3 with 2 home runs and a double and make a great play. It doesn't help that one of his last real play with the Cardinals was basically a game blowing misplay in right field. But it is
that
what
would have been a really tough catch.
Well, the metrics put it at like roughly a 60% likely catch.
Really? Damn, I didn't know that.
Yeah, upon further inspection, he took a pretty bad route to it, and it's still not the easiest catch, but it's considered a pretty catchable
bye,
ball.
Dylan.
Yeah. But 7 games in 7 days. So
good for us, bad for the Cardinals. But I don't know. Yeah, like you said, it's 3 teams that aren't world beaters, and only one of them has gotten better, and it's only one game, and that game, essentially a coin flip when it's just a 1v1 match. So, should be a fun week though.
Yes. All right. Though we would just touch on, for the league news section, we just touch on a couple other deals that happened around the league. And some of them we've kind of already talked about, but just to go through them, the one that this was pretty surprising to me, but it's a very familiar name, and so I think we got to talk about it. The Royals, who are a good team, a competitive team with maybe the best shortstop in baseball, maybe the best player in baseball in Bobby Witt on their team. They have acquired our best friend, Paul DeYoung.
Let's go.
Were you surprised by this?
Yeah, I think I was surprised by it, but I think when you look at the Royals, when you look at how their team is constructed, how young they are, bringing in a guy that can play second, shortstop, and third, all at a pretty high level, and doink-a-dong every once in a while. He's so steady. He is like a good clubhouse presence for a young team.
Yeah.
He is not a useless player. And I think I will not be surprised if Paul DeJong sticks around in the major leagues for another 6-7 years, just being a solid bench utility, sometimes thumper player. Like he makes a lot of sense to a team that's good and a team that doesn't need to rely on him for 150 games at shortstop. I like it, and I'm more than anything, I'm just happy that he is out of the South Side and that hellhole that of terrible baseball that's going on right now. So good for
Yeah,
him.
he was somehow like one of the best players on the White Sox team and having
Yeah.
a reasonable year. So yeah, I wish him the best of luck. It's got to be fun for him to be back on a team that's competing back in Missouri.
Yeah, their bench right now is Adam Frazier, longtime utility guy, Paul
Mm-hmm.
DeJong, longtime utility guy, Garrett Hampson, longtime utility guy. Like that's a pretty solid, if not exciting bench. Um,
Yeah,
and I'm just kind of pulling for the Royals. I want them to do well.
yeah, and they've got a handful of guys that are just going to play every day, no matter what. Bobby Witt, Pascantino, Michael Massey seems pretty good. So like having these sort of like super utility guys, they don't really need any like full time starting bench spots, if that makes sense. So it's an interesting way to build a bench, but it makes sense. All right. So continuing on former Cardinals, we already mentioned it, but just to discuss more specifically, Jack Flaherty is
Yeah.
heading to the Dodgers. Good for
Yeah.
Jack.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard not to like that deal. He's already had
Yeah.
a very solid season. You
Full
could
bounce back. He's having one of his best seasons, of
argue he's
course.
a top 20 pitcher in MLB right now.
Yeah.
Um, he goes to the organization that is good at making good pitchers even better. He's an LA guy, California guy. They're in first place. I mean, it's kind of all the same things with Tommy Edman. Who wouldn't want to be a Dodger right now?
Right.
They are the organization in baseball. I think it's not even really close. Um, and they go and get a guy who probably slots in right after Kershaw, who is now back healthy. Um, Glass now, Flaherty, Kershaw. Seems like Yamamoto is going to be back soon. The team is good. It got better. They didn't have to give up all that much to get him. So great deal. Good for Jack.
Yeah, the Tigers actually got a little shit for this deal. The GM had to go out and like defend it. They're saying they didn't get it. He didn't get enough for Jack Flaherty.
Well, when you see
And
that Yusei Kikuchi deal between the Astros and the Blue Jays, it's hard to say that they did a good job here.
yeah, I don't, it's one of those things where they clearly wanted these guys. He came out and said, we had multiple offers on the table, and this is the one that we selected. And we believe that this is the best return for Jack Flaherty, so really,
We'll see.
we'll see. Time will tell. But you never like to be a GM who has to go out and defend a trade
Immediately. Yeah.
immediately. One last trade. Another one we mentioned, but this is just a fun one. I really love Jazz Chisholm. I think that he's a really fun player. He's super toolsy, and he's just been buried in this like shit that is the Marlins. And also, he's been hurt a lot, which
Yeah.
hasn't helped his own results. But best case scenario for him, he got acquired by the New York Yankees, and man, you got it like that. The Yankees lineup of Judge, Soto, Chisholm, Austin Wells looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Giancarlo Stanton is back. This team's going to continue to hit a lot of home runs. It's the Bronx Bombers, man. They're back.
I think that you're right. And I think what's really exciting for a team like the Yankees to get a player like Jazz who can play, he's playing third base all of a sudden, which he's never done before. Obviously,
he had a pretty good play last night too.
He did. He can play shortstop. That's definitely not his home. He can play a really solid second base. He can play a really solid center field. He's got wheels. He's got power. He's a left-handed hitter in Yankee Stadium, so that's just inherently a boon. I think it's going to be great. I also think that the Yankees probably need a little less of the vibe that Judge and LeMahieu and Stanton put out, and a little more of the Soto Chisholm type of vibe.
Yeah.
A little more fun, a little more youth, a little more energy. So I think it'll be great and fun to watch. And Jazz should be a superstar, and this is going to help him be a superstar.
Yeah. I agree. It's a good deal. So, I mean, I hate it, because it's the Yankees,
From
but
a 30,000-foot view, baseball point of view, I like it. From a
yes.
Ben Samorka Cardinals fan view, I hate it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I like Jazz, so it's a good landing spot for him. But man, there's some really, really good teams out
Yeah.
there. Uh, man,
Well, yeah, we'll
Judge.
see. The Yankees, the Carlos Rodon is finally pitching like they paid him, and
Yeah.
they might have a nice end of season run. We'll see.
Yeah. And Judge is somehow having a better season than the year he broke the AL home run record.
There is a non-zero chance he could break his own record again.
Yeah.
And I'm rooting for that as well.
Yeah.
But he is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. All right.
My God,
Well,
he's almost at 8 WAR already. Holy
yeah.
shit! Aaron
Yeah.
Judge. He's 32. He is the best player in baseball.
Yeah. I mean, you can still kind of make an argument for Ohtani, but he's a DH and Judge is out there, doing it in center field too. So
He's playing center, which it's just amazing.
Well, anyway, all right. So that was our discussion on the trade deadline and the upcoming series. So now it's time for us to move into the end of the episode where we're going to play a little.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
The fake surprise is what always makes me want to.
Hambone, it's been like 6 months since we've dealt with this guy. I thought we finished him off for good.
Me too.
But no. Well, let me see what I've got here. Is there something we can do to satiate the card shark?
Don't pantomime like you don't have cards sitting on your desk right in front of you.
Well, here we go.
Oh my God.
I've got I guess we have to play our game Card Shark now.
I'm sure you had something else
I had
planned.
a whole other thing
that
I spent hours planning.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
He's so inconsiderate.
But the Card Shark is here, so we're going to play a quick round of a little game we call Card Shark. Hambone, we haven't played this game in 2024. I have
Is that true? Wow.
Yeah. I've got a pack here of Topps 2024 Series 2. This is the update series. The way this game works, I don't know if it'll come through on the recording. I am opening the pack live.
We can hear it.
I don't know what is going to be in it. I'm going to read the player. You have to tell me what team they are on and what position they play.
All right. It's my jam, baby. It's going to be hard right after the trade deadline, too. There's a lot of movement.
Yeah. All right. This first one's really shiny.
Ooh.
Maybe it's special. All right. Easy one. First, Spencer Strider.
Oh, wow. My guy. Starting pitcher for the Atlanta Braves.
There you go. Look at that. Look how shiny that is.
Thigh god.
Yeah.
God of thighs.
He is the god of thighs. Okay. Aledmys Diaz.
Wow. Aledmys is still on the A's, right? I think he's still an A. Or did he get moved recently? I'm going to say A's, shortstop, second baseman.
You got it. Aledmys Diaz. Somehow still in the league. I dropped the card. I really am surprised. I mean, I always liked him. But yeah, he's with the A's.
Being a shortstop is really good for your career.
Yes, it is. Okay, here we go. Jordan Walker.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, right fielder for your St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, they have him listed as third base outfielder still.
Oh, so. That's fun.
Yep. All right. Liam Hendriks.
Liam Hendriks is with Boston, I think. Closing pitcher. I think he's with Boston, right?
You got it.
Yes.
Yeah, still rehabbing. Great story. Came back from cancer, but then immediately had to get Tommy John. But great guy. We love a Liam Hendriks. All right, first one that is not an immediate household name.
Okay.
Estevan Florial.
Estevan Florial is, well, he used to be a Yankee. I think. And I don't know where he is right now. Florial. I'm going to guess he is still a Yankee. He's just in the minor leagues. I believe he is an outfielder.
He is an outfielder. He is, however, now with the Cleveland Guardians.
Oh, did not know that.
He was with a Yankee up until this year.
Okay. I was like, he was a Yankee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Bryce Terang.
Bryce Terang. Is that Bryce Terang? Is he the guy on the Brewers, right? Or is he a pitcher? Brewers second baseman, right?
He is at least listed on here as shortstop, but I do believe he's been playing second base for the Brewers. Yes,
right.
He's actually kind of part of the reason that they've been pretty good this year. He's been stealing a ton of bases and just playing pretty well for them.
I'm going to take that as a win for me.
All right. Alejandro Kirk.
Alejandro Kirk, my dude, catcher for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, they just traded Danny Jansen too, so they're locking in on Kirk.
In the business of Kirk.
Yep. All right. Joe Boyle.
I'm going to say Joe Boyle is a relief pitcher for the Seattle Mariners. I have absolutely no idea.
He is. It's his rookie card.
Yeah.
Got the little RC there. He is a pitcher for the Oakland Athletics. Or
I was going to say the Athletics, but I thought no.
Yep. He's with the Athletics. All right. This is funny. Francisco Lindor.
Hey, shortstop for the New York Metropolitans.
All right. Carlos Estevez.
Just traded, right? Used to be the closer for the the Angels, and is now a relief pitcher for the Phillies, right?
Yeah. Yes. You got it.
Former Rocky legend, also, shout out.
Yep. Just a couple more here. Daniel Lynch.
Daniel Lynch is definitely a baseball player. I want to say he is a relief pitcher for the Rangers, but that isn't right, is it?
That is not right. He is a starting pitcher for the Kansas City Royals.
Damn. I'm going to double check that one. I don't know why I'm sure you're right, Nate. I'm sure you're doing a great job, and this is totally above board.
Nope, I'm cheating.
Yep. Okay, he's still a Royal.
All right, final card. Tyler Stevenson.
Tyler Stevenson is a catcher for the Cincinnati Reds.
You got it. All right. You only missed a couple. Overall, I think you satiated the card shark.
Okay. That felt generally easier, except for Boyle.
Yeah. You just missed Boyle, and that Estevan Florial was with.
Yeah, damn that one I should have gotten.
And Daniel Lynch.
Yeah.
As a reliever.
All right, I suck.
But other than that, you got all the other ones.
Other than the ones you got wrong, you did great.
Other than the ones you got wrong, you got them all right.
Perfect.
Look at this Spencer Strider card. It's like really shiny.
Cool, dude.
Shiny.
What else is going on? Dumbass.
You're the one. All right. All right, that's going to do it.
We're on a show right now. Look at me.
All right, that's it. That'll do it for this week's episode of Talking About Birds. Once again, please consider checking out the Patreon, patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. We'll be back next week after a full slate of games. Hopefully the Cardinals can make up some ground in the wild card. And we have a fun last couple of months of the season. This is it, folks. This is the time when all your bandwagon friends are getting in on it too.
Yeah.
Every game matters. We're scoreboard watching. We appreciate all of you that are going through this with us. If you have a friend in your life that you think would enjoy the show, now's a great time to tell them we are in it. This is a playoff race. How exciting. The Cardinals have added on in a meaningful way. We should be excited about that. So we'll be back every week like we always are. I guess that's it for this week's episode. And until next week, go Cardinals.
Tommy Pham.